Awesome. I can see you. You can see me. So, as I was saying, and I lost my train of thought, but I haven't met everyone there. So it's just very nice to sort of see new faces, and particularly nice to see some older faces that I haven't seen in a bit. Thursday night was a regular night for me at the Village Zendo for years and years and years. And at the risk of sort of making newcomers feel, on the outside, and that is certainly not my intent. Many years ago, you were only going to hear a Dharma talk from like one or two voices. Enkyo Roshi, Ryudo, Jimpu, names that are no longer even with us at the Village Zendo. And now we have this rich, um, you know, group of voices all expressing the Dharma in really unique ways, whether it's through their artistry or their teaching or through music or through just the process of aging and living their lives, parenting, everything that they bring to the Dharma and the Dharma brings to them is what is alive for me at the Village Zendo. And I think something that is really unique about our practice center and something I carry. Um, and as this summer has been unfolding, I have noticed a tendency of, or a habit of mind of my own that I have pretty much every spring. And it has once again happened this summer, where my husband lives in the city during the week and is up on the weekends, but is in the academic calendar, much like myself. So when he's here in the summer, I got my honey-do list cooking well into like March and April. I know what we're gonna get done over the summer. We're going to paint the house. We're going to redo that fence. We're going to, and the list is always, you know, 25 projects longer that would, than is easily feasible. And then the world has a tendency of throwing unpredictable projects, clogged pipes that back up into the washing machine. Um, oh, we have to call the exterminator. The mouse problem is a little bit out of control now, and we've got to do something about it. Or more recently, a hornet's nest that set up camp right outside my door, right here, right next to the slider onto the back deck where we enjoy a lot of our outdoor time. And so, I had to make a decision about this. I live in the woods. I am very comfortable with critters, and they're going to be in your home if you live in the woods. So you figure out where the mice can be and where they can't be, where the ants are okay and not okay, where you have to pull poison ivy out and where it's okay to be. You have to make decisions on the daily about what is tolerable and what is not tolerable. And in so doing, there's maybe impacts. Like I like pollinators. We have like a real problem with a lack of pollinators on our planet. These are pollinators. They're also insect eaters, and they're going to take care of those insects on my deck. But they also sting me every time I open the door to go outside. So we've got to figure this out. Something's got to give. So it reminded me of the saying, there's a moment in Shuso Hosen. So right now, for those of you that aren't in the know of all the fancy words we use, we're in a period of ango, or entering into a period of ango, of peaceful dwelling, where we intensify our practice for a period of time. And in that period of time, a student is selected to sort of lead the community, to be the practice leader for that period of time. And Torre is a student who's practiced at the Village Zendo for many years, and they are leading the community during this period of Ango, and very exciting. I couldn't be more excited for them. It's a wonderful thing. And Torre, in their ceremony, will be handed the shipe, the small staff, at the end of the ceremony, and the teacher is going to say, Shinryu will say, "How will you use this?" And Torre responds, "Freely giving life and taking it away." And it sounds so dramatic in the ceremony. And I was obviously in that ceremony, and there are those online who have done it or have witnessed it. And it's such a dramatic sort of thing, freely, giving life and taking it away. And I don't think it can be appreciated in the ceremony. You're too busy getting through the ceremony. But then thinking about it after, what does that mean? Each breath, giving life, taking it away, giving life, taking it away. It can be as subtle as that. But also, what do I choose to nurture? What are the things in my environment, in my life that I choose to nurture and parent? And what are the things that I, say, no, I'm going to let you die away. I'm going to let you fall off. I'm going to let you, um, sort of disappear, or maybe actively deny, that it's in our life. Say, no, that's not me. That's not my responsibility. Uh, and it really lands differently, what we choose to give life to and what we choose to deny on our station, on our gender expression, on the color of our skin, our nationality, our economic status. I think it's a very different thing for each of us. It's not to be determined by some law that comes in from the outside. It's written into our precepts, into the Kai. It's how we express this. So, meditation is a wonderful thing. It's great to get good at sitting perfectly still. But our practice is about the marketplace, getting up and engaging the world. Um, and I was thinking about this because I came across a meme recently that perhaps you have seen. And the meme is basically a cartoon that says, how do you say F you in Buddhist? And the response is, thank you so much for this opportunity to practice. And I just had to laugh, to myself that, yeah, that happens so much in my own life. The irritation arises, and the story is right behind it. And I have to take that moment and say, thank you for this opportunity to practice genuinely, not just, from a joke cartoon standpoint, but genuinely, thank you for this opportunity to practice. So I was in a recent meeting, a work-related meeting, where these opportunities often present themselves. And someone who, often I have an opportunity to practice around, was asking the very questions that were in the 15 emails that, preceded the email, that spelled it all out very clearly, the conversations within the meeting that discussed how this was going to unfold, then became a question like, well, how is this going to unfold? Well, that's what we spent the last 20 minutes talking about. So, it was one of those things where I had to keep bowing and really listen to the person. And when I did, there was, information there that may not have been told if I had just stayed in my resistance. And all of it reminded me of this very old Buddhist parable that I had kind of forgotten about, but had an opportunity to hear on a recent small retreat I was on from a dear friend who shared it again. And I went, oh, this is a beautiful story. So I'm not going to give the full story. I'm going to get to the meat and potatoes of it. But it's the story of the two arrows. And it comes back over and over and over again in different ways in Buddhism. So perhaps you haven't heard it, perhaps you have. But to titrate the story, the first arrow is our first noble truth. It is dukkha. It is often translated as suffering or dissatisfaction, just a real like, up, didn't want that. So that's the first arrow. And the second arrow, which we reach for so instinctively most of the time, is a secondary arrow that is just adding to the first. So we've been shot. You know, who shot me? Why did I get shot? I shouldn't get shot. Oh, I'm really bleeding. I might bleed to death. What will I tell my partner? What will my dog and cat do? So we start immediately going to the second arrow. Not that that's not something that may need to be addressed, but we have to address the first arrow skillfully, and really see what's arising around that second arrow. So, can I really just simply stay with ouch? No, just ouch. And that is our practice on the cushion again and again and again, whether it is practicing koan or whether it's our breath, our mind is going to leave the task at hand. So we develop that muscle when we see it go, oh, what am I going to have for dinner tomorrow night? Oh, I have a test coming up in 2 weeks. Oh, wait, I'm supposed to just be counting my breath. And we strengthen that muscle of mindfulness to come back again and again and again. So when we are in the marketplace, and we're reaching for that second arrow, we can go, oh, I don't need to do that. I can take a breath. I have a practice, and I can respond as opposed to react. And I think just one breath gives us that opportunity to say, I'll be responsive. I won't be reactive. So this wasp's nest was the first arrow for me. I went, oh, there's danger at the door, literally at the door. But the second arrow, was the guilt that I felt about taking it out. Well, I can't say I took it out. It was Scott, my husband, who took it out because he's much swifter and better at these things than I will be, and did it 1, 2, 3, and problem solved. But then I had all of the sort of feelings around taking out this wasp's nest. Had to witness the ones who were off gathering pollen come back to no queen, no nest. Where do I go? Knowing that they're just going to fly around until they die, and it wasn't a good feeling. And at the same time, when I'm done giving this talk, I'm going to sit on my back deck. So, swiftly giving life and taking it away. When is it right? When is it wrong? And it isn't that, and isn't that really, how everything goes, honestly, that the sting of daily life, every day we're getting stung, and we have opportunity to decide how we're going to respond to the sting. And so recently, in an online Buddhist forum that I follow, I experienced a recent pretty profound sting, not for myself, but for someone else that I'm very fond of. And there were responses to a posting, and very incriminating, very accusatory. It was political in nature, and you should be more like this, was the tone that one person was having towards another. And I couldn't help but think of these wasps that were outside my door. So the wasp, first, it can sting multiple times. Like it's not like a bee where the stinger goes in and comes out and off they go and that's it. The wasp can get you over and over and over and over again. And not only that, when it stings you, it injects you with a pheromone that releases a scent that all the other wasps now know you are a target. So I was thinking of that in the social media thing where this person was clearly baiting others to say, don't you agree with me in your hatred for the actions of this other person, and how they have behaved? Isn't it reprehensible? And I could see the desire of this person posting coming from a very strong, and perhaps righteous, place, seeking validation. And in so doing, stinging those around him or attempting to sting those around him. And then I thought, would my response to this, as my hands were on the keyboard, be another wasp sting? Do I need to respond? So I took that breath. I took a breath and I went, there's enough voices in this mix. My voice is not going to add something to this. If I feel strongly about my response to him, how shall I act now in the world? And I made a donation. That was the simplest thing I could do at that time, to say, well, I can't respond to this way, but I will respond. A response will be actionable. And this is all leading me kind of to our study text for this period, which is the Prajna Paramita Heart Sutra, the core text of the Mahayana path, or a core text of the Mahayana, chanted every day in our community. And, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. I think for new ears, that can sound very abstract. Like, what does that mean? I practiced it and chanted that for a long time without having a deep understanding. And perhaps I still don't. And maybe that's a good thing. But, maybe it's the boundlessness of all the forms and their interconnectedness throughout space and time. So did that clear it up? I feel like that's so much less abstract. But it's that no individual thing, individual Dharma, individual form, my computer, my cup, my being, my body, exists individually in a vacuum. It is absolutely 100% dependent on all other phenomena not just in the here and now, but throughout space and time, which is indeed the here and now. And that's what this is pointing to. And it's wildly abstract, and yet it's so sort of easy to see when we go, oh, this small self, you know, is where awareness resides. You know, I am experiencing awareness, but this I, you know, is not just Joan. It's everything. And that's where responsibility kind of comes in. And, you know, in the Heart Sutra, it says no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. You know, I can feel like that can be a sting onto itself, you know, that it's like, ouch, all of my ego, you know, was so attached to this identity. And now I've had some time on the cushion and I'm realizing, yeah, I'm here and there's agency here, but there's a responsibility with this agency. And I'm not separate. And it can be like a little bit of an ouch, you know, and I think that ouch is that arrow, that first arrow that we all experience. That isn't to say that the first arrow can't hit us multiple times. You know, we can have the loss of a loved one for the first time, the, you know, loss of a job, you know. And the arrow can also be something that's joyful potentially too, something so wonderful that enters our lives that we decide to add something to it and not just let it be what it is. Scotty, get your phone. Oh, it's stopping ringing. So, you know, it's not so much the question of avoiding being shot. That's light. The question is, can we meet the moment without reaching back, you know, for that second arrow? You've been shot. Why shoot yourself again? And so, and, you know, can we let the first arrow land? You know, just let it happen, you know, without all of the avoidance of it. You know, I'm not welcoming pain and suffering, but saying, oh, it's going to happen. And then can we hold our identities around it lightly enough to say, thank you for this opportunity to practice, as opposed to being more reactive with by saying something else that isn't, thank you for this opportunity to practice. Because really, each arrow, you know, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to practice. So I'm going to leave you with a small gata that I have written. The sting lands, sharp, brief as the wind through the pines. Before the story forms, before the second shot, this breath, just this,